Good evening and welcome to the webinar.
This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the webinar. My name is Jeff Goldsmith and I'm your host. Tonight we have one of a series of webinars. The webinar is on the role of the unit commissioner in the new normal, social distancing. We have a full capacity crowd tonight, so everyone is on mute. The reason for that is because we're recording this webinar, which we will provide afterwards for playback for those who either could not join us or for those who needed to review it later on. As everyone is on mute, we would ask you to ask questions by using the chat bubble, which is the cartoon bubble on the middle center of your screen with the word chat next to it. You're going to go ahead and type in your question as a note to everyone. Again, to ask a question, use the chat cartoon bubble icon, bottom middle of your screen, and type a note to everyone, and we will answer your question during the presentation. The questions and answers format for this presentation will be as follows. The first approximately 25 minutes to a half hour will be presentation. The balance of the presentation, approximately half hour or so, will be questions and answers from the field. Tonight, we're privileged to have a great panel of folks to present this webinar. We have Ellie Morrison, our National Commissioner, Larry Chase, our National Commissioner Service Team Chair, and Linda Baker, our Northeast Region Commissioner. Thank you.
Welcome. This is Ellie. There are defining moments for every generation. For the children of the time, 9/11 was a day of intense fear and a realization that life as they had known it was forever changed. 9/11 also brought a newfound cherishing of family and community that would profoundly influence the rest of their lives. Those who were children on 9/11 are part of the millennial generation, and many of them are parents of today's Scouts. That generation, like all of us, is heavily impacted by the really big events of our childhood. How do we want our Scouts to remember the time of the coronavirus? I believe the coronavirus is one of those generation-shaping events. How we react to it and how we encourage Scouts to react to it will matter for the rest of their lives. Will today's Scouts remember a feeling of doom, loss of control, boredom, and video games, the end of their scouting lives? Or can we change that scenario? What would we like for them to remember? Feeling secure despite the virus, having fun, trying new things, feeling like they've become leaders. Most of all, we want our Scouts to feel prepared and empowered, to realize that they have some control over what they do each day, to feel a sense of accomplishment with what they do each day, and to realize that they can live by the Scout law and help other people each day. What impact would we like this time to have on the rest of their lives and the way they see themselves?
Hello, everyone. This is Linda. Adults recognize that to everything there is a season, whether we're thinking about our personal or our scouting lives. Sometimes the seasons are wonderfully predictable. We anticipate them knowing that we are prepared. Think daffodils coming up in the spring, or recruiting new scouts as school starts. But sometimes we find ourselves in a season that no one could have predicted, such as this new normal of social distancing during the coronavirus pandemic. It's these sudden, unexpected developments that can send us into a tailspin, not quite sure of our purpose as we begin the new day. Recently, we've seen seismic shifts all around us. Many of the changes are in today's culture, but some have occurred in the BSA organization itself. A year ago, welcoming girls to packs and troops seemed like a huge change. A month ago, we worried about the changes that financial restructuring might bring. Somehow, all of those seismic shifts pale in comparison to the impact of the coronavirus right now. Every day, we learn of increasing impact and see measures taken to slow the spread of the virus. The measure of social distancing has led to extensive cancellations and guidelines for limiting in-person contact with others. For scouting, that means no longer having most in-person gatherings, meetings, campouts, trainings, recognition events, and so on. And we don't know for how long. As we think about how unit commissioners can help scouting to thrive during this time of social distancing, we'll be looking at three aspects of that question. Let's start with putting it in perspective. It's important to keep reminding ourselves that some aspects of the BSA are constants. Most important is our mission: to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Scout Law. The mission doesn't change, whatever the news of the day happens to be. Another constant is our program. Child psychologists tell us that the two lasting things we can hope to give our children are roots and wings. One of the amazing strengths of scouting all these years is that it has been a premier developer of both roots and wings. Scouting is a special place that gives both roots and wings the safety of acceptance, the chance to try new things. The roots are the haven to count on, the base that is sure and strong, the sense of belonging and values, the knowledge of right and wrong. The wings are the opportunity to follow dreams that soar, to take risks and reach for stars, to always aim for more. Even in times of unprecedented change, scouting needs to continue to build these strong roots and sturdy wings for our youth. Years ago, I saw a report saying that the Boy Scouts of America had the highest level of volunteer engagement of any youth-serving organization. That's been another constant, and a very important one, over the decades and generations. The iconic idea of the Scoutmaster continues. In today's world, the leader and the youth may be male or female. Today, new member coordinators welcome families. And throughout the years, the unit commissioner has been the principal support for the unit. There are a lot of other volunteers who can also be called on to help. Part of the role of the commissioner is to understand what's really important. We need to keep giving priority to the mission, the program, and the volunteers. The vision of our national commissioner is that every member of the BSA will have a great scouting experience. Prioritizing what we identify as the big rocks will help us to realize that vision. If you think of the symbolism of that jar that we're filling, we need to keep the big rocks in place, even as we address urgencies such as a pandemic. That means that we keep working toward our mission and program delivery and volunteer engagement, even as we engage in social distancing. That's not easy, but we'll figure out how we can do it. In the long history of the Boy Scouts, there have been many challenging times, including war and depression and natural disasters. Each time, the Boy Scouts have met those challenges by focusing on helping others and have grown stronger themselves. Over the generations, in popular culture, if someone is referred to as a Boy Scout, it means that that person is a good guy, someone with values, someone who will help, a white hat. That's an important part of who we are and who our youth are.
Even in times of stress, maybe particularly in times of stress, we need a sense of balance. Play, routine, and caring interaction make a difference. Providing scheduled virtual scouting program elements can give the youth the chance to learn and be creative. It can provide structure to what would otherwise be long stretches of random time. Scouting can show children that they still belong to a social network where people beyond their family care about them. So how can a unit commissioner help Scouting to thrive at this time of social distancing? One of the other ways we can do that is invest in yourself. As a commissioner, it's important to invest in yourself. We can do this in two different ways. First, practice self-care. Do all the things health-wise that are being suggested. Wash your hands, practice social distance, all those things. Be obedient and cheerful in following these guidelines. They will make a difference to you personally, and they will set an example for others. Eat well, get some exercise, plenty of sleep, and equally important, take time to play. Play helps us stay balanced, keeps things in perspective. Play also helps us be creative, particularly when it comes to solving problems. We're going to need a lot of creative problem solving. The other way to invest in yourself is to focus on your role as a commissioner. Catch up on training. I know my YPT is due in May. This is a good time to catch up on entering contacts in commissioner tools. It's a great time to go online and see what trainings you haven't had time to take. There are a lot of trainings out there. Take a walk and think creatively about what you can do as a commissioner. What is your vision in your role as a commissioner?
Engaged commissioners meet people, lots of people, and those meetings aren't accidental, they're intentional. This is Larry, and it's great to have a chance to meet all of you virtually this evening. Being there doesn't refer only to physical presence. This is the first time you've seen this logo. It won't be the last. Over the coming year, we'll be talking a lot about meeting the people. It's important, and it's essential to our success as commissioners. Yes, the logo has a handshake, but handshakes can be virtual as well as physical. Let's talk about that. Increasingly, Scouters have been meeting virtually. Your National Service Team has been doing that monthly for nearly 2 years using video conferencing. That's becoming the norm. If you've been on social media over the last couple of weeks, you've seen increasing evidence of how widely our units, districts, and councils are using virtual communication tools to keep on scouting. It may be video conferencing, phone calls, emails, or texts, and it may use any one of a host of tools readily available at little or no cost. It's not the same as meeting in person, but it works. Today, it enables us to keep on scouting. When social distancing is no longer an issue, it will remain a valuable tool. And it's an opportunity for our youth to lead and our units to help one another. Our scouts know more about the virtual environment than we ever will. They can help us learn. They may also be a resource for leaders of our packs and other units. Why is meeting in people so important? The reason is simple. It's our path to building great relationships, networks, stronger units, and building that great scouting experience. Engaged commissioners are a rock, an anchor, a reference point. Others they have met come to understand they are someone who can be called on to answer a question, help solve a problem, or celebrate a success. Unit leaders understand engaged commissioners are their first best resource. Who are we meeting? You may immediately think about meeting unit leaders, and you might be right if you're a unit commissioner. It's essential that unit commissioners meet regularly with the leaders of the units they serve to build the relationships needed to work effectively with them and to maintain an understanding of unit strengths and needs. It's also an opportunity for them to share scouting passion. But there's more to it than that. Consider this. Other scouting volunteers engage with one of the BSA's 3 functions: program, membership, or finance. Commissioners, who are responsible for the BSA's 4th function, unit service, must engage with all 4. Commissioners need to meet volunteers and professionals involved in those other 3 functions and develop relationships with them to be able to serve units effectively, to be that rock. Recruiting commissioners also involves meeting people, both prospects and others, inside and outside of scouting, who may know others who might be prospects. Commissioners need a broad, deep network of scouting resources to serve units effectively. The first key to knowing how to meet is to listen, to seek to understand. And in the process, 2 questions can be invaluable. The first is asking what else repeatedly during a conversation to help ensure that all the issues needed to be addressed, all the opportunities to serve, have been identified. The other is to ask what's next at the conclusion of the conversation. It helps shift the focus to the next issue or opportunity to serve. It helps us and the units we serve to keep moving forward. The most important thing that unit commissioners can do right now is to encourage and inspire unit leadership to keep on scouting. Encourage thinking outside of the box, particularly in using visual alternatives to what we used to do in person. In this new culture of social distancing, scouting is more important than ever for our youth. Youth need to have a sense of normalcy, safe ways to have contact with one another, and a feeling that they are learning and accomplishing something each day. Amazing resources are being shared online. We'll share some before we finish up. Remember, engaged commissioners are that rock, that anchor, that reference point. They help answer questions, solve problems, and celebrate. We're facing challenges, and we're also seeing great things happening as our youth and their unit leaders do what Scouts have always done: apply their scouting spirit to today's challenges. Find ways to celebrate their creativity and success, their commitment to keeping on scouting. Make the celebration as public as possible. Visual tools can help do that too. Remember, this is what engaged commissioners do. They build great relationships based on respect, trust, and candor. That enables building stronger units that ensure every member of the BSA has a great scouting experience. And it's an ongoing process. It doesn't end with establishing a relationship. Relationships need to be continually refreshed so that networks continue to grow, units continue to become stronger, and great scouting experiences just get greater.
This is Linda again. As Larry has noted, even during this time of social distancing, as commissioners, the most important contribution we can make is to be there for our units. Scouters are creative. We can figure out ways to be there, even if it's not face-to-face. But we should never underestimate the power of human connection. You might have seen this quote before. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Think back to conversations you've had over the years. Some that come to mind might have left you feeling discouraged. I hope that there were many that left you feeling empowered. Commissioners visit units not to judge, but to support and encourage. I hope and believe that our commissioners leave people feeling inspired and re-energized, proud of their efforts, and ready to keep going and make Scouting stronger still. Commissioners strive to live by every point of the Scout Law, but these four are essential to our success. We don't tell unit leaders what to do. We're helpful. We work collaboratively with them to strengthen their units. Throughout the process, commissioners are friendly, courteous, and kind. Modeling these points of the law in our work with unit leaders is important. The unit leaders that we serve are striving to live by every point of our Scout Law, too. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are particularly important today as we adapt to this new normal of social distancing. There is much that Scout units can be doing right now to model the ideas of the Scout Law. It starts with thinking out of the box, finding creative ways of doing things. Help is available from the amazing resources that are being developed and shared nationally and in councils and units throughout the country. Figuring out how to deliver great Scouting program virtually is re-energizing our Scouts and unit volunteers. And of course, we're ensuring that our virtual meetings still have the same standards, the same Scouting spirit that we see in our person-to-person meetings. Scouts are finding wonderful ways to help others from a distance, sometimes helping with physical needs, but often creating positive social connections online, or even using old-fashioned means, such as telephoning. Along the way, individuals and units can keep setting goals for themselves and finding wonderfully creative ways to reach them. Like the never-ending ripples when we throw a pebble into a stream, helpfulness and kindness have that same effect. Scouts do make a difference in the world. Now is the time for units to focus on providing safe, socially distanced programming that helps the sparks of creativity to keep growing, that helps Scouts to develop a growing sense of self-worth, that helps Scouts find opportunities to help others and know that they are creating that ripple effect. Many years from now, as today's Scouts look back at this time in their lives, we want them to remember what they were able to do and how they made a difference. Winston Churchill emphasized that to each there comes a special moment when they are tapped on the shoulder and given the chance to do something uniquely suited to their talent and situation. Perhaps this is the season when each of us has been tapped on the shoulder to provide critical leadership in difficult times. Churchill's quote concludes with, "What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour." It's up to us as commissioners to be sure that we ourselves are prepared and that our unit leaders are prepared.
Truthfully, this is Ellie. If you look back in Scouting's history, you realize this isn't our first rodeo. As an organization, we've been called on before, and we responded. I think of the role Scouts play during World War II, in recent natural disasters, and other times of emergency. When you hear comments like, "You are such a Boy Scout," it isn't an insult. It's a reflection of the reputation we have earned over years of responding with service in hard times. This is another one of those times. And while it isn't our first rodeo, it is our Scouts' first rodeo. And we have a responsibility to help them cope and react to it. We are ready. We are prepared. And with a little bit of encouragement from commissioners, our unit leaders will make an impact on how our scouts respond to emergencies today and for the rest of their lives. Listening is a very important part of what we do as commissioners. Please let us know what you hear as you talk with those in units. Keep in touch. Use commissioner tools to let us know what you are seeing and hearing. And don't be afraid to send a personal message to your area or regional commissioners when there's something that would be helpful to share with others. And please be sure and share it with the commissioner service team. And in the spirit of a game with a purpose, there's a patch you can earn. I've often said that commissioners are the glue and grease of scouting. We are the glue that holds units together and the grease that affects change for success. This is one of those times. We have outlined things that commissioners can do to make this a successful time on the website. I want to celebrate with you as you have those successes. Check out the Commissioner website for details on how you can earn this patch. And finally, what the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. Who knows how long this season will last, or when or how we'll emerge. But I know that we are in the master's hands and he has a plan. Hold on to your faith, continue to hope, and respond with love to those around you. Scout on, my friends, scout on.
Scout me in.
The scouting spirit is alive and well. A long list of resources to enable virtual scouting is already available. A new National Council webpage has basic information available today. More will be added. Brian on Scouting is an official BSA Scouting magazine resource. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, as it will be a great ongoing resource on a variety of subjects. Our Commissioner webpage will also be adding information. The News for Commissioners page will be used to highlight the latest. Our local councils have been proactive. This is just a short list of some of what is already available. We'll be sharing these links with you through our Commissioner webpage and social media channels, and you'll be hearing more about this. And when all else fails, do a quick internet search. Simply Google BSA Virtual Scouting. Be prepared. Some discretion will be needed in identifying the best resources, but thousands, literally, of options will be displayed. What tools are available to conduct virtual meetings? Two of the most popular are freeconferencecall.com and Zoom, both because they work and because they offer free options along with more advanced capabilities for a fee. Basic information about their options are available on their websites. YouTube will provide a variety of training videos. One of each is displayed here. We'll be sharing these and others with you too.
Thank you all for your participation in that great presentation. We have a bunch of questions that are coming in, not all of which are directly related to Commissioner service, but as an effort to try to answer some of those questions for you, we've reached out to some of the other groups at the national organization to make sure that we provide the best and most updated information. I would suggest, though, that if you're looking for most current information, you go to scouting.org/coronavirus, and you'll find on that particular page information on many different things. There is a page that is COVID-19-FAQ, which has a bunch of answers to the questions that I'm about to read. One of the questions that came in deals with Cub Scout adventure requirements and how they're being handled. If you go to that webpage, you'll see that it indicates that obviously for Lion through Bear, parents have always been able to sign off on their son's requirements in addition to their den leader. So there's no change there. But due to the COVID-19 and through July 31st, 2020, parents and other adults of the Cub Scouts family may sign off on Webelos and Arrow of Light requirements. That is a change, and that's directly related to COVID. We strongly encourage parents to use Scoutbook or the Scouting app to record completion of your child's requirements so the PAC is aware. In addition, we understand that advancement may be slowed down in the Cub Scout path because of the COVID virus. For that reason, there is an extension that Cub Scouts may continue working on their current rank through July 31st, 2020. If, however, they finish their current badge of rank prior to July 31st of 2020, they may advance to the next rank. Another advancement question we received is related to Eagle, and especially those that are getting close to their 18th birthday, as well as those working on Summit and Quartermaster getting closer to their birthdays. Again, please go to scouting.org/coronavirus/COVID-19 FAQ for all the details. But in short, due to the COVID-19 virus and effective immediately and through September 30th of 2020, Council Scout executives may grant extensions or delegate authority to their council advancement committees to grant extensions only under the following limitations. It can be established that the COVID-19 disruptions were the only circumstances that delayed work on Eagle, Summit, or Quartermaster advancement requirements or related merit badges. If any of those causes were involved, the extension can be, if any other causes were involved, the extension must go through the National Council following the process outlined in the GTA. Extensions can only be granted for youth scouts in the Scouts BSA program who have achieved the life rank. For Eagle, the extension must not exceed 3 months from the scout's 18th birthday, and for Summit and Quartermaster, it must not exceed 3 months from the youth's 21st birthday. Again, extension requests for more than 3 months or beyond their birthday of more than 3 months must be sent to the National Service Center following the process outlined in the GTA. Again, for more specific details on these particular questions, advancement related, they're all covered in detail in the scouting.org coronavirus COVID-19 FAQ page. And please do look at that for all the specific details on advancement related questions. So for Commissioner Service, we do have a few questions that have come in. So I'm going to throw these to the panel and we'll go from there. One question is, what's the best way to perform commissioner assessments in this new normal?
Obviously, we're going to be doing that virtually. And I think that it's important to choose a platform that works well for you. FaceTime can be done with multiple people in different locations. Certainly you can use Zoom and other options. It's important to use what works for you and what's comfortable wherever it is that you are.
Thank you, Ellie. Larry, a question for you. How do you encourage troops to conduct virtual meetings if they've not done so in the past?
That's a great question. Commissioners have an opportunity to share their passion with the leaders of the units they serve and to discuss with them options to deal with the challenges we face at the present time. We're publishing additional resources that those unit commissioners can review and they can discuss with unit leaders to help them understand how they can implement virtual scouting. And as we see examples of what's being done locally, we'll also share those so that unit commissioners can share those examples also with their unit leaders and help them understand the opportunities that exist that enable the youth we serve to remain active in scouting during this time.
Thank you, Larry. Linda, we have a number of questions that have come up concerning grief counseling, especially as this virus has now resulted in deaths. And we wanted to be sensitive to that, and questions about related to that, as well as a follow-up question about scouts worrying about their parents' employment and their health. Could you answer that for us, please?
This is one of those that I certainly don't have expert answers to. I think all of us, though, as we're trying to be helpful and kind and thoughtful, can call on the same human connection methods that we've used in the past, except that there won't be that face-to-face, person-to-person physical element. On the other hand, we need to make sure that we're reaching out to folks, that we are connecting in whatever way is going to work. In many cases, there are virtual possibilities. Phone calls are a wonderful thing. We can certainly write notes. I know of one particular case where a longtime scoutmaster died, not from the coronavirus, but during this coronavirus time. And the unit produced a video actually through Zoom that they shared that related the memories that scouts and unit leaders had of that scoutmaster and the wonderful ways in which he had inspired them over the years. So I do think that we'll need to be creative, keeping in mind what we've always kept in mind in scouting, that we just want to be supportive of each other in the kindest way possible.
Thank you, Linda. I think one of the other things that bears repeating in response to that question is obviously be respectful of the family's wishes. We certainly want to be there for them. We certainly want to make sure that we do for them whatever is appropriate, but we do want to be respectful of their wishes. The follow-up question, Linda, was with respect to a scout who's worrying about their parents and employment, and now that they're all working from home as well as homeschooling. Any tips or tricks there?
Again, I'm sure that you folks will come up with their own wonderful ideas. But, you know, scouting is all about helping families. And so much of what we do in our Scout Oath and Law and in the efforts that we make, even with the merit badges, even with the adventures that we have in Cub Scouting, so much of those are based on family life and helping each other out. So I think that that's the main thing that we can encourage is the conversations and the physical helping of each other in the household when everyone is there together. That becomes a very important part of the family dynamic.
Thank you, Linda. Larry, a question for you. We've had some questions about technology and tools. Can you give us a little bit of insight there?
Sure. There are several questions that have popped up. One was asking if there were any problems with setting up a Discord server for unit meetings. This falls under the heading of local scouting and what works best. And it's probably worth considering the fact that Discord is proprietary freeware designed for video gaming communities, and it specializes in text, image, video, and audio communication between users in a chat channel. There are likely other readily available tools that are better suited to supporting virtual scouting. There was a similar question about Slack. Slack is a great web-based messaging tool designed to enable teams to communicate. While it does facilitate grouping and viewing communications by categories, it doesn't support voice or video communication, so it may have somewhat limited applications for virtual scouting. Someone noted that freeconferencecall.com is not free if you're using a cell phone, and that probably is related to the individual cell phone plan that you happen to have. If you have cell phone charges, those certainly could be a factor, but Free Conference Call does have a free level of service that's available. There were questions about whether or not councils or the National Council have subscriptions to Zoom that can be shared. On the local council front, that's a local council question that should simply be referred to your local council to see if there are any resources available there. Today, the National Council doesn't currently have a Zoom account available for local use. And related to Zoom, somebody suggested that the 40-minute limit on the base version of Zoom has been lifted during this time. The latest information available indicates that Zoom has lifted that limitation for K through 12 schools in Canada, Germany, and the United Kingdom, but it appears they have not lifted it generally. We'll continue to try to provide commissioners with information about these and other technology tools so that they have the broadest possible array of tools to use for virtual scouting.
So Larry, two key points. One is obviously that many of these products have free versions available. Although they may not have all the bells and whistles, that may work locally. You need to check those out and try those out. And I think the other point is that Larry made that really bears repeating is the fact that many of these tools are in use already. So you want to check with your unit, you want to check with your youth and parents to find out what works best locally. There is no one size fits all. We need to make sure that everyone's aware of the options and that you come to a decision that makes sense for you. Obviously, one thing that bears repeating, no matter what technology you use, you want to make sure that youth protection guidelines are followed. So there should always be two deep leadership as well as all of the other constraints of youth protection to make sure that we have safe and appropriate meetings. Ellie, a question for you. This deals with national events coming up. A few questions, and they're somewhat related. One is about Philmont and the PTC courses for commissioners, and then I'll go to some follow-up questions.
Yeah, as far as I know, to this point, since we don't know how long these things will last, Philmont and the Commissioner Week are all systems go. Summer camp, you know, is something else that we anticipate at this point being a great thing to participate in. I think for us right now, the important thing is for us to focus on getting regular scouting meetings and merit badge work, those sorts of things on solid footing. And in next week, the weeks to come, those decisions that are focused on late May and summertime activities will be focused on.
And Ellie, I assume that would be the same answer for the National High Adventure basis?
Oh yeah, all of those things. Local summer camp, high adventure, all of those things.
Okay. And we got a quick follow-up about the National Annual Meeting. At this point, there's been no decision on that. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think that decision will be coming soon. And as soon as that decision is made, we'll communicate broadly and everybody should get that information.
Great. Thank you very much, Ellie. Larry, we've gotten some questions which I think are interesting and I think it's important to address. A couple questions about the COVID period and whether or not we're going to try to recognize people during this period for those who may go above and beyond.
Another great question. Jeff, let me take a minute and jump back to technology for just a second. I think something that all of our commissioners and local unit leaders need to keep in mind is they have a great resource in our troops, our crews, our posts, and those are the youth that are active in the program. They, as I indicated earlier in the presentation, probably know more about this virtual world than we ever will, and they can help point our local leaders to resources that may help bridge the gap during this time of social distancing. We're working on putting some things in place for recognition of commissioners. Ellie made reference to them during the presentation, and people can go to the News for Commissioners segment of the Commissioner website, and they will find information there about the options that are currently available. And we will also use that particular page to celebrate successes that are particularly significant as we move through this period. There are no specific special awards or recognitions available related to the COVID situation, but as or if any of those become available, we'll use the News for Commissioners page to push that information out. And we'll also, for all of these topics, be using our Commissioner social media channels to get information out as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Larry. Next question comes up. This one I'll open for the panel. And that's a question about how do we deal with councils that are being problematic with following the national rules, especially with respect to council advancement committees that may have simply decided to shut down during this COVID period, despite the guidance given by Brian Splog and the Guide to Advancement.
I think this is a case, this is Ellie. I think this is a case of the council commissioner sitting down with the council president or the advancement chair and start with why these things are important to continue on. Share some of the information that was put forth in this particular presentation. And I think that why usually solves all the concerns that people have. And it just, to me, it just makes sense. Start with why.
Thank you, Ellie. I appreciate that. Next question is going to come up, and this is one that is related to advancement. We are proud to have females who joined Scouts BSA, and obviously there was the question about the inaugural Eagle class. There is some questions about whether or not the timing of that inaugural Eagle class may change based on the COVID virus. And the answer to that is simple. At this point, there's been no discussion yet on any potential changes to the inaugural Eagle Scout class of females. If there are such changes, you'll find those on scouting.org/coronavirus, and you'll be able to see those there as they come up. We are aware of the issue, and we are certainly recognizing the question was asked, but at this point, there is no discussion on that particular topic. Next question comes up with respect to JTE, and will there be changes this year as a result of the COVID virus?
Those things are being considered at this point. I don't have any concrete information to give you about that, but rest assured that that committee is talking about those things and thinking them over.
Thank you, Ellie. Larry, question for you, and these are a number of questions, so I'll just summarize them down. What about the availability of digital books, for example, merit badge books or handbooks? Could you please address that?
At the present time, there are not digital editions of handbooks, and there are not digital editions of the entire merit badge books. However, there is a BSA website that provides an abbreviated version of all of the merit badge booklets, and it's abbreviated to display just the requirements. So it could well be a useful resource, but at the present time, the complete merit badge handbooks are not available digitally. We'll share information on those sites on the Commissioner webpage.
Great. Do keep looking out, as we said, on the coronavirus issue on scouting.org coronavirus. You're going to see a lot of information there. Larry mentioned earlier about Brian's blog and introduction and information about things as they come out. Those are really two great resources to make sure that you bookmark so that you can keep coming back to them, because there are changes. This is obviously a very fluid situation. The one thing about the coronavirus is there's nothing constant about it. So we need to make sure that we get people engaged and aware and that they're using the most updated information, which is why we're trying to answer all of your questions possible tonight. One question came up, Larry. This is a question about apathetic units or units that have just simply decided to wait through the coronavirus and not engage in social distancing virtual scouting.
Jeff, let me, before I address that, let me jump back to virtual or electronic copies of handbooks and merit badge booklets and so on and so forth. Sometimes the definition of electronic gets a little bit muddy. What I was referring to earlier was whether there is an opportunity to go online someplace and read the entire merit badge book or handbook. And that's, as I indicated in the earlier answer to the question, there is the ability to go purchase an electronic version, if you will, or I'm sorry, there is the opportunity to go purchase a Kindle version of some of the handbooks, and there may be other books that are available there now. Kindle being an Amazon product, and again, this is an area that as additional resources become available electronically, we'll share that. When we talk about units that are no longer meeting, or where possibly they have become apathetic or just generally down with the challenges of the current times, I think the answer in short is go meet the people. Engage commissioners who are passionate about scouting and regularly contact their unit leaders to share their passions, answer their questions, and help them meet challenges are the best tool that we have to overcome apathy. And they can also, as we've talked about before, link those units in with what other units are doing to keep on scouting during these times.
Thank you, Larry, and I'm glad you clarified the handbook question. I believe I saw something literally hot off the presses from Brian's blog on handbooks available for purchase in the electronic format on Kindle. So there certainly is things that are coming literally as we're presenting this webinar, and we want to make sure we get you the most updated information. One of the questions that came up generally deals with youth protection. We've kind of addressed this a little bit earlier, but one question dealt with making sure that youth protection guidelines are followed during troop meetings. Is there any guidance that we want to provide folks about that?
In general, we need to follow the same standards that we would follow for troop meetings. Otherwise, we need to make sure that if we're using Zoom, for example, even if it's just a patrol meeting, we want to have 2 adults obviously present in the Zoom meeting. That doesn't mean that they are going to be taking the lead in the discussion, but that they're there as resources and that they're there to make sure that our standards are being met. And that will vary a bit. We'll always need to have the 2 deep leadership, but there will be some variations in exactly how youth protection comes into play with different situations. One of the questions that I've sometimes heard is, what about the Scoutmaster Conference, which in the past has usually been done kind of one-on-one with the Scoutmaster and a Scout, but within view of others. In this case, one of the units suggested that what they're going to do is to do it by Zoom, to ask that the parent be around and that the parent be there to say hello to folks at the beginning and end of the Scoutmaster Conference, and then that the Scoutmaster be joined on the Zoom platform by an assistant Scoutmaster who might or might not take part in the discussion, but would be physically there on the Zoom screen throughout, along, of course, with the Scout who is participating in the Scoutmaster Conference. So I think that there are workarounds that we can do, and it's a matter of common sense and seeing what's going to be comfortable for everyone, too. We want to make sure that our parents are comfortable with what's happening. And we don't want to change any of the rules. We just want to adapt in the best ways that we can.
Thank you, Linda. And one thing that is important with boards of review and other meetings it is, at least at the Scouts BSA level, is to recognize the ages and stages, to make sure that the parents are engaged. But again, at that point, that would be a youth-driven process, and making sure that there's a second adult leader involved in the Scouts Board of Review. Although maybe they're not asking questions, is one way to handle it, to make sure that the youth and not their parent is engaged in the entire process. We don't want to exclude parents, but we also want to make sure that parents are not doing more than they should be, as they would in a normal troop board of review. So
I think you're thinking of Scoutmaster Conference there, weren't you, rather than Board of Review? Because Board of Review would always have several adults. But the Scoutmaster Conference is the one that becomes a bit trickier. So one of the things, too, there with the Scoutmaster Conference is that we would still ask parents not to be participating. We would certainly not preclude them from being in the same room and able to observe. We would ask them perhaps to put a little distance between themselves and the Scout, so that the Scout feels comfortable with it being his or her opportunity to talk kind of one-on-one with the Scoutmaster.
Thank you for that clarification, Linda. Yeah, I was talking about Scoutmaster conferences, but in addition, with the Board of Review, we want to make sure that we engage and make sure that there are two adults on the line at all times, so we have the two deep leadership. So thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. So we have another quick advancement question, and that is, in these times of either home quarantine or shelter in place, is there any discussion right now about camping nights and whether backyard camping would count during this COVID period? The answer to that question is, obviously you need to abide by your local health official rules and guidelines, but there is no answer yet as to how those would relate to the advancement process. So we will provide you that information as soon as we hear more. Our next question is regarding the new Scout Book apps, and there is one already available for den leaders, as well as one in process for Scout leaders, in order to make it a little bit more functional in the field. This is obviously one way to communicate. This is obviously one way for people to make sure that their son's rank or if Scouts BSA or higher, that they input their information into Scout Book and they're able to communicate. So look forward to seeing more information on that on Brian's blog, as that was already in process before the coronavirus. So we'll be seeing more about that. Question came up about CyberChip and virtual meetings. CyberChip is certainly encouraged to make sure that all Scouts have current CyberChip and participate in virtual meetings. That's really an internet safety protocol for the youth, and to make sure that the youth are aware, just like the adults are aware of the youth protection guidelines. So let me just see if there's any other questions. And I'm just checking right now.
Jeff, while you're doing that, it's interesting that several of us have referred to Brian's blog during the course of answering the questions we've seen so far, and that just reinforces the fact that that's a great resource, and one that if commissioners haven't subscribed to already, they ought to subscribe to help them stay current.
Thanks, Larry. We got a number of questions. As I mentioned at the beginning, obviously a lot of people were interested in this topic. Our Zoom capacity for tonight is 300 people, and we were at 300 people for the entire presentation as well as Q&A. So a number of people have asked about the availability of the PowerPoint presentation as well as the recording of the webinar. I understand that those are certainly going to be available on the 3 commissioner social media pages. And Larry, do you want to talk a little bit about their availability on the commissioner webpage?
We'll also make those available as soon as possible on the commissioner webpage. We'll probably start at least by putting notification up in the news for commissioners area. But as you indicated, Jeff, we'll also be pushing notice of that out through our social media channels.
And a question I always love to get, will there be any more webinars like this? For those who may not know, there have been a number of webinars. I believe we're over a dozen at this point in this format. They are available and recorded, and I will work with Larry to make sure that that information is out on both the social media for commissioners, the 3 Facebook pages, as well as the commissioner webpage as may be appropriate. So thank you for that inquiry. Yes, we do intend to do more of these webinars. We are actually working on the next one right now. I can't quite yet disclose the topic because it's still in flux, but we are working on one now. But we felt that this COVID webinar was obviously timely and needed to be done right away, and that's why we got the team together. And again, my sincere thank you to Ellie and Larry and Linda for doing yeoman's work in what was actually less than a week to get this webinar from an idea to live. So again, thank you all. We really appreciate it. Are there any other closing thoughts that anyone would like to give? I'll start with Ellie.
I think the most important thing is to encourage units to be creative, to reach out to their members, to continue to scout on. These are uncertain times, and having a routine, something that you are familiar with, makes all the difference in the world. Something to be creating and to working on makes all the difference in how we cope with these things. We don't know how long this will last. I suspect this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so it's important to get back to a predictable routine and accomplish things in our lives, as well as reach out to one another, particularly in service. Thank you for all the things that you are doing, and continue to do what you're doing. It'll make all the difference down the road.
Thank you, Ellie. Larry, some closing thoughts?
Thank all y'all for investing in yourself and in scouting by spending time with us this evening. Go help some kids.
Thank you. And Linda, closing thoughts?
Just to echo what everyone else has said, but also to encourage you to keep in touch. Let us know how things are going. We're all there to help each other.
And that leads me to our segue here. We have a great commissioner service team, and one of the things that they are asking for is not only if you have questions, but also if you have some really great best practices in the field of virtual scouting. We'd love to hear about those. Those can all be sent to commissionerserviceteam@scouting.org. You'll see that on your email if you're not participating with the entire webinar, maybe by phone. I'll repeat it again. It's commissionerserviceteam@scouting.org. Please make sure that you enter your email address in the body of the email to make sure that we have your contact information if it's a question in order to contact you with an answer, or if it's a best practice so we can follow up with you to get some additional information. We've tried to answer a number of questions, not all of which are commissioner related. We encourage you to continue asking questions. And if they aren't commissioner related, please understand we're going to try to get those to the correct individuals at the National Boy Scouts of America for an answer as soon as possible. We understand that these are very difficult times and these are times of change. We will endeavor to provide you the most updated information as soon as possible. Again, my thanks to Ellie, Larry, and Linda for a great presentation tonight and for all of your insightful answers. This has been a great presentation. Thank you all for participating. Some 300 folks obviously thought that this was important as we do. And we encourage you to continue scouting on, and we encourage you to try to find new and novel ways to have virtual scouting in this new normal. This is Jeff Goldsmith. Thank you again. We are signing off. Have a great evening.